Do you worry about your health and your finances? Do you have family stress? Does your job stress you out, or does your lack of a job give you stress as well? Do you get irritated easily? Well, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the hidden secrets to reducing stress. And it's a big, big topic, I know, especially for everything that we've been through in the last few months. So I'm really excited that we'll be able to share some tips with you about how to reduce stress and how to do it naturally. In this episode, we're going to talk about the causes of stress, some of the symptoms of stress that our body could be exhibiting that we may not even know are related to stress. We'll also have a very special guest, an expert in the industry of yoga, to show us some stress-reducing yoga postures and a whole flow on how to naturally reduce our stress. We'll also be dispelling the myths around yoga and some of the things that people think are connected to yoga and they actually are not. And we're going to be sharing a lot of tips to help to naturally reduce our stress. So it's going to be a great show. Hello, Norm.
Hello,
so great
Dr.
to be here.
So great to be here with you. Absolutely. And I enjoyed last week's show about children's health, but I'm really looking forward to talking about stress because you know what? I think people are stressed out for a variety of reasons, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everything, that's happened specifically in the last 3 months, and people watching the news and, really becoming inundated with all of this negativity and all of this fear. And I think some people have definitely handled it better than others, and we'll talk a little bit about that and some of the tips and tricks that we're talking about in today's show. If you haven't been using these within your lifestyle, then they may be easy things and easy transitions that you can add into what you do on a day-to-day basis to really help to minimize that stress. And it really is amazing how well some of these things can work, and they're fairly simple, so that's the good news.
I'll be taking notes for sure. And speaking of notes, by the way, you can leave your own comments and questions, suggestions, and ideas in the comments section below. And be sure to like and subscribe and share this video with other family members and friends, people who are experiencing stress, which really is just about everybody I think we'll be talking about. And click that bell so you're always notified of The Dr. Janine Show coming up. So remember that you can also follow Dr. Janine on Instagram at Dr. Janine, DoctorJanine, on Facebook, and also TikTok too. Now, we've all got stress in our lives. There's no question about it. But what, Dr. Janine, are some of the most common causes of stress?
Well, what's so interesting, and did you know that studies have shown that people can have up to 50 stressful thoughts or events that go on in their mind in a day.
Wow.
And I think on some days I probably have a lot more than that. I don't know about you, but
true.
Certainly in the last few months, I think that number would be even higher. I mean, this was tested back in 2016 or so. So I think definitely in world events in the last little while, I think that number would be double or maybe even triple that at least. And, a stressful thought being something that isn't when you're in a balanced state. So we typically don't stress about, normal day-to-day things, but there's a lot of things that can happen and events can happen, and they've actually been ranked. So again, this is a few years back, but the Harvard School of Public Health actually did a nationwide poll, and that they found that the number one cause of people thinking and being stressed was related to the fear or and they're going through illness and disease. So health reasons was one of the number one causes for feeling stress. And I think it's a good that we're doing the Dr. Janine Show, and it's all about health, and that's why it's so important, that we pay attention to our health, and of course, from a natural perspective. Number two on the list was death of a loved one. So that's understandable, but for, the health reasons being top of the list, I didn't realize that myself. I mean, when I was doing the research for today's show, I thought death of a loved one would be number one. And it wasn't, and it was actually almost double. So when they did it on a graph, it was almost double the amount of stress from the health reasons as opposed to the death of a loved one. So it goes to show you that people do stress a lot about their health and lack of health and and not feeling well. So interesting. Number three on the list was work-related stress.
Yeah, sure.
I think a lot of people can maybe relate to that.
Except for here, of course. I
Of
just want to be
course.
clear on that.
Yes, because we have, no stress, of course. Tip number 4 is life changes or transitions happening. So moving would be an example, and that's
Sure.
way up there, high on the list. As well as number 5 is family stress. So family stress, we know, in a lot of circumstances, there's a lot of family stress. And number 6 on the list is relationship stress.
Okay.
So in my mind, I think, a lot of people would have thought that relationship stress would have been higher on the list. But
Right.
again, we have to think health and why it's so important and why I always am an advocate of taking care of your health.
Yes.
And that's why my tip for reducing stress is to be preventative, be proactive about your health. Do everything that you can naturally to take care of your health so that you don't have to be stressed about it, right? So as long as we're preventing getting sick or running down our immune system, we're, being proactive about the stresses in our life and being healthy diet and exercise, as long as we're being proactive and preventative, then we may not have to worry about those stresses of illness and things because we didn't manifest them in the first place.
So if we think that stress is just a normal part of our lives that we have
Yeah.
to accept every day, but we're not acknowledging it, what are some of the symptoms of stress?
Well, the first one that I would say is probably poor sleep. So, when you have something that's stressing you out and you either wake up really early in the morning because you just can't sleep and that thing is going through your mind,
Yes.
and because of that stress, what I have learned over the years is that that's actually a protective mechanism. So historically, and from the animal perspective, that if you are awoken early from your sleep in the early morning hours, that was for the ability for you to wake up and solve a problem. So it's in our biology.
Wow.
As that, but imagine, okay, that's okay. Once in a blue moon, that happens. You've got a stressful event. That actually happened to me today. I was stressed about something. I woke up really early. I went down to the computer, did my research. Then I was like, and I did a bit of yoga.
Yeah, good.
So
good.
when we talk to our special guest today, she'll be very happy about that. But I did a bit of yoga, got me grounded and centered again, and then I could go out. But had I not done that, had I not gotten up and dealt with that, then maybe tonight when I go to bed, I would have had the same issue and would
True.
have had to wake up early again. And that's one of my tips again about dealing with your stress, is to deal with it in the moment. If something's stressing you out and you're not processing something in a healthy way, then deal with it in the moment and use some of the tips in today's show to help you to alleviate that stress so that it doesn't have to then prolong itself, because poor sleep, we know, we've talked about in other shows,
Sure.
affects our ability to detoxify. It affects our ability for our organs to regenerate when we're sleeping.
Yeah.
It affects our beauty and our skin.
Yep.
So we have to get that restful sleep. So that's one symptom of stress. Another symptom of stress would be dietary changes. So either you have a little bit more appetite. So some people do the stress eating thing, which we've talked about in a previous episode when we talk about sugar addiction.
Yeah.
But some people go the other way. When they're stressed out, they can't eat. So there could be some weight loss there. So that could be concerning as well. Because of course we know that we have to, eat and to sustain. But for a lot of people who are overeating, this could be a problem.
Yes.
Right? So this is Mr. Fat.
What does that mean? What is Mr.
So-
Fat?
Well,
What-
this is what 5 pounds of fat looks like.
Okay.
So for anybody who's lost 5 pounds of fat, or has gained 5, or double this, 10 pounds, triple this, 15 pounds, I mean, this is a good visual.
It's a lot. It is.
It's a lot of weight. And as much as we think, losing 5 pounds, that's a task to get this 5 pounds off. So it's important to know that stress is very much related to our waistline and our cortisol levels. So it's important to make sure that we find the balance and, take care of our adrenal glands. That's where our stress hormones are created, to take care of that so that we don't have to pack on Mr. Fat when we don't need it, obviously.
Wow, that's a big one.
Another symptom of stress would be changes in exercise patterns. So some people, when they're stressed out, they actually will over-exercise and do a lot of exercise as an outlet for the stress. So there's a happy medium of a balance there. And then some people will become more sedentary and have less activity because they're stressed out. Another symptom of stress would be increased sleep. So some people that are really, really stressed out and maybe going towards a more depressive type of behavior may sleep a lot more. They just can't get up in the morning. And that would be, if you have a loved one, certainly in your family that you recognize that this is happening, you can definitely, reach out to them and help them and see how you can help maybe with, deal with some of those symptoms of stress. And another symptom of stress would be increased watching of television.
Oh, okay, really?
So this goes hand in hand. So think about everybody who was home during the pandemic
Yep.
and binge watching a lot of programs.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Sure.
And that was an outlet for dealing with stress. So that would be one of them. Another one with the kids is the video game, and not even just kids, but older adults as well who play the video games. That is an outlet for stress. So if a little bit's okay, but too much of anything we know is not healthy.
Yeah.
So my tip for dealing with some of the symptoms of stress is a really simple one. And this is one of the things that I love. Essential oil of lavender. So lavender is multifunctional essential oil, which is relatively safe, in terms of essential oils for most people. And it's one of the only essential oils that you can actually use undiluted. And
May I? Thank you. Oh, I love that.
it is just
Love that.
so
nice.
lovely and very calming. So what you can do is, and I'll actually do it right now, is I've done this a few times today, is put just a couple drops on, and this is how I usually do it. So go ahead if you want to do this. A few drops on your
On your
wrist.
Okay.
And then what I do is I'll inhale it a little bit, and then I bring it right around my neck, and then wherever I think in the pulse points here, you can put
So
it too.
nice.
And it's just, you can do this a couple times a day. Some
Guys
people-
too? I mean,
Yeah,
you think?
absolutely.
Yeah, okay,
Why not?
'cause, yeah.
It's just so calming. And another thing you can do is to put a few drops on your pillow at nighttime. So if you've got insomnia and your sleep is affected by your stress, this is a great way.
I like that.
This is great for pets as well. Again, you have to check with your vet and make sure that this is something that's recommended and you don't want them ingesting it. But
Right.
great for the children as well. So really an easy tool that you can implement. You can put it into a vaporizer into the room so that you have the essence of lavender, and it goes a long way. And it's not just because it smells pretty and it's great. It actually has been proven. So I have a study that actually shows that the pharmacological mechanisms of lavender, which is lavandula angustifolia, essential oil on the central nervous system and dealing with the serotonin receptors, which is such an interesting thing to say that, yes, it actually has been studied in the literature to find the pharmacological effects of something as simple as, again, what Mother Nature gives us. And she gives us so many tools, and yet we just don't always know how to use them. So that's a great tip to be able to relieve stress. To do it naturally helps to relax the nervous system and the central nervous system, and doesn't really have the negative side effects, which are unfortunately associated with a lot of the conventional methods of, dealing with stress.
That's a good one. I really like that one. What about the aging signs of stress? You know what I'm
Yeah.
thinking of? Are some of the politicians you see on TV, isn't it so true that they age, they look different going into office as compared to when they come out of office, maybe 4 or
Yes.
maybe 8 years later or what have you? There's lots of examples.
Oh, absolutely. And this is something you can see, if you're watching the television over those years, it's dramatic.
Yeah.
And yes, even, studies have shown, so a study was done in mice, because it's one of those old wives' tales, oh, you're going to get gray hair, you're giving me more gray hair, right? When you're stressed out and you say this to people, but it's actually been studied. So in the Nature journal, they found that there was something called the hyperactivation of sympathetic nerves, which is part of our autonomic nervous system, drives the depletion of melanocyte stem cells. And this was specifically the hair graying results from the activation of these sympathetic nerves. So that's the fight or flight response that you may have heard of in the autonomic nervous system that had an influence on the melanocyte stem cell niche. And so what that's saying is that, yes, in times of stress, when they stressed out these poor mice, they turned gray. And
Wow.
that's cause and effect, right? And I know we're not mice as humans, but often we use mice as examples. Certainly we don't want to do this on too many humans because
Yeah.
they wouldn't be too happy if we're stressing them out and giving them gray hair in a study, right? So as an example, and we know, I mean, anybody that I've seen that's gone through a very stressful period, then yeah, they do gray very quickly because of the stress. So it is in the literature. Another one is the aging process. So people that have been, they lost a loved one in their family and they've gone through, or maybe job stress, they've gone through a very difficult period of time. You
Yeah.
can see it in their face. It looks often that they've aged, 10, 15 years, all because of the stress. So that would be another example. One of the lesser known signs of stress would be TMJ. So have you heard of TMJ?
Yes.
So when people get the jaw aches
Yeah.
and clicking
Yeah.
in the jaw, sometimes clenching at night, which can be related to suppressed anger, but also stress. And so that clenching can be related, to one of the symptoms and signs of stress. So definitely, if that's your body is telling you that you've got some of these things happening, then absolutely you want to, first of all recognize it, but then try to do something about it. Another one would be high blood pressure.
Okay.
So that's definitely related to stress. And this is something when I used to see my patients and I would take their blood pressure, of course, wearing my white coat and giving the blood pressure test. Always the first time that I would take the blood pressure, it would be very high, and that's just because of white coat syndrome. That's what it's called when you're fearful of the doctor with the white coat.
syndrome.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
And
It's
so
true.
what I would do is I would take the blood pressure again after they've relaxed for a few moments, and sure enough, the blood pressure would come down, quite a lot, up to 10, 15 points.
Makes sense, though.
It does, right? So we have to watch our stress. Another symptom of stress would be acne. So at any age, so we think of, the teenagers and the younger kids with hormonal changes, that would be, in that age group, but not necessarily. It could be even adults will break out with acne
Sure.
because of the stress. So my tip to help with, the acne and some of the other symptoms of stress would be always to detoxify the body. So getting rid of those internal toxins, whether you do it with your diet and cleaning up the diet, getting a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. If you choose to go with herbal medicines, absolutely. If you've got questions about that, we're going to have links at the bottom of today's episode to some herbal medicines that can help with that. But once in a while, do a clean out. I usually say at least 4 times a year to do a full body detox, get those toxins out, and that will help to alleviate the stress on your organs so that you can better handle some of the other stresses that are in your life. And sometimes when that toxicity level and that load builds up, then we're less able to deal with the everyday stresses. So that's my tip for helping with some of those symptoms of stress.
It's so nice to know that Dr. Janine will be online during the show to answer your comments, your questions, subject matter ideas that you have. So leave those comments in the comment section below. And remember to like and subscribe and share the video and click the bell too so you never miss another episode. And speaking of other episodes, you can check out previous episodes on YouTube if you would like to see what you've missed or go over some of the other things that we're referring to, for example, even in this show. And also, be sure to follow Dr. Janine on Instagram, on Facebook, also on TikTok, at Dr. Janine. That's DoctorJanine. Every Monday, 7 o'clock, with a naturopathic doctor and answers, or questions with natural answers, really, with the Dr. Janine Show. So, I'm assuming that all this stress can really have a serious effect on our health, right? Am I correct in assuming that?
Oh, absolutely. And it can lead to more serious problems. So when we talk about cardiovascular disease, so certainly it is statistically significant. And there's been epidemiological studies that have been done on the rate of heart attacks and what day of the week that it happens. And it's typically on a Monday.
Wait a minute, typically on a Monday, an actual day of the week?
Absolutely, and why is that? And there's a huge spike on Mondays because it's the beginning of the work week. And so typically with the stresses, we know stress and cardiovascular disease and having a heart attack is definitely correlated. And that stress, it's correlated. So again, as one of the stress-related health issues, it's so important that we deal with the stress first. It wasn't necessarily the cardiovascular disease. Yes, it could have been, the arteries could have been blocked because of stress and poor diet and lack of exercise and all those other, cofactors that go along with developing the actual MI or myocardial infarction. But it was the stress in the end that pulled the trigger to develop the heart attack. So we have to be mindful of these things, and that's why all the tools that we're sharing today in the show are so important to be able to deal with the stress.
Do you think being on Monday is partly because of what I'm doing Saturday night? And Sunday,
the hangover effect.
right? And then Monday I'm up for work or up earlier than I have been in the last 2 days, typically. What do you think?
It may be. It may be part of, and the lack of sleep, which we talked about, and then that's, then the worried mind, and then maybe you can't sleep early on the Monday morning because that you've got things that are happening and you've got to get things done on that Monday. So it's a very, very common thing. So again, to be cognizant of that and to really take care of yourself, maybe prepping on Sunday to be ready for the work week, so that that you go into it as
gently
and as easily as possible. Absolutely. Another one of the stress-related health issues would be stress disorders, so the anxiety, the panic attacks, and this is something that in my patients over the years is they think that they're having a heart attack, which is so disheartening. But for the fact that sometimes there's little to turn to. It's not like the medications are the answer, because they can really sort of cut you down in terms of your overall energy. So this is a huge concern. And again, I don't think I've ever seen a patient who just sort of started to develop panic attacks and nervousness and anxiety disorder. It was building up over the years, and because the stress wasn't managed in micro steps during the process of that surmounting and building up, because it wasn't dealt with, that's how it gets to the big panic attack. So this is why it's so important, if anybody's watching today, right, and they're listening and they're wondering about how to do this, recognize these things in yourself, perhaps that those little increments of stress are building up and you don't want to get to that point of having the panic attack. Another one that's a stress-related health issue are the eating disorders. So definitely overeating is one, when we talked about Mr. Fat, right?
Mr. Fat.
And putting on that extra weight, but also undereating. So when you're stressed out and not eating, so they could both be equally as concerning for the overall health, and always finding the balance in our body. Another one would be the low levels. So the accumulation of the low levels of stress, so whether that's muscle aches, so people who have a lot of muscle aches, that could be an indication that stress is built up. And this is one of the things we'll ask our special guest about today, about the muscle aches and the pains and things, and with yoga, and how yoga can really, maybe help to alleviate some of these, as much as we think that we're doing yoga. And this is something that we'll ask our special guest, who's coming up in just a moment, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, me too.
That the yoga can really be helpful at reducing that overall stress in the body, and then helping with the muscle aches and pains. Of course, headaches as well can be very much related to stress. IBS types of symptoms as well. So in the gut, the irritable bowel syndrome is very much stress related, and definitely the gas and the bloating and all those symptoms in the GI tract can be related to that stress. So I have a tip.
Okay, yeah.
So a tip for alleviating and for reducing the stress in the gut. So with the IBS symptoms, and it's called deep belly breathing. So we're going to put our hands on our guts, and we're going to help to relax something called the enteric nervous system. So this is part of the autonomic nervous system. So there's a branch of parasympathetic and sympathetic. Parasympathetic is the more relaxed state. And we want to be in this more relaxed state when we're digesting our food, when we're not in that relaxed state. So let's say we're the grab and go, we're stressed out, we're eating and having a heated argument with someone, we're not relaxed, we're not centered, well then we're in the sympathetic part of our nervous system, which is the fight or flight response. And when we're in that mode, then all the blood flow isn't going to digestion, the blood flow is going elsewhere. it's going to our heart to help for us to run away from that stress, right?
Yeah.
That's the part of the sympathetic nervous system.
Yes.
We're also not secreting our digestive enzymes, so we have to be relaxed when we're eating. And no wonder people get IBS and all these symptoms of the gas and bloating in the stressed out state is because that blood flow is not going, and those enzymes are not going where they're meant to into our digestive tract to help with digestion. So we're going to center in on that. So we're going to put our hands on our bellies.
Yes.
And we're just going to close our eyes gently. We're just going to take a few really deep breaths. And with the intention of helping our enteric nervous system, and with belly breaths, meaning that as we inhale, we allow our belly to expand. As we exhale, we allow our belly to fall. And just allowing for that parasympathetic nervous system to kick in, and it's that more relaxed state so that we can help with digestion. And this is for anybody who has difficulty with digestive issues, any type of digestive issues. I can almost guarantee that this is part of it, that stressed out response, and this can really help people without medication. You don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to pay any money, you're just you're breathing, but with the intention of helping to relax that enteric nervous system in the gut. You do that for as long as you can. I mean, ideally you do 15 to 20 deep, slow breaths with focusing that energy here. It can do wonders. And I've seen this in my patients, like turn things around in terms of their IBS symptoms. Yeah, in as little as a few days.
Amazing.
Because of that mindfulness and being able to center in on that. So I want everybody to try it. If they're struggling, with these symptoms of stress, especially in the digestive tract, that would be a great tip to do that.
Okay, what's next?
So I'm so excited. We have a special guest today.
Good, yeah.
And Kamel El-Seed is a yoga instructor. She has been practicing for over 10 years. She's an expert in the field of yoga and yoga therapy. She's had over 1,000 hours of training and doing yoga therapy, which is phenomenal. And she really is someone that is very well versed in using yoga as a tool to really help, whether it's her students or herself, which she's going to share, to help with reducing stress and to really, connect that mind, body, spirit connection. And Kamel's going to share some yoga postures with us, so a whole sequence, but also she'll be dispelling some of the myths around yoga, because people have misconceptions, I think, about yoga, and that's something that we'll definitely be talking about. So I can't wait to welcome her in.
Me too.
So, Kamel, we're so honored to have you here on the Dr. Janine Show. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Janine, for having me here. I'm happy to be here too.
Good, good, good. So we've got a ton of questions for you, so we're going to, it'll be tag team.
Yeah,
between
okay,
Norm and I.
great. We'll gang up on her and tag with all these questions about yoga. Okay.
But she can handle it because she's very zen and yoga.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how can yoga help to reduce stress?
Well, when we think of the mind, body, spirit connection, if you affect the physical body, so let's say when we practice yoga, we're stretching muscles, we're moving things. We always say that the issues are in the tissues, and so we're stretching and releasing some of those issues, and therefore reducing our stress.
Okay, so I have a question. So let's say someone comes into your yoga studio and they're complaining of, different muscle pains, and would that be something that you would say, oh, that's a red flag, that may be related to stress? Not that you're going to judge them or anything, but would that be sort of a telltale sign that there's some stress going on in their life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of stress related injuries or tension is as a result of the mind, like what we perceive to be stressful, which then manifests in our body, right? We're holding on to tension, and it shows up in the neck, it shows up in the shoulders, in the back.
And so would yoga be something that helps? Like, have you seen that it's very helpful for relieving that stress and that tension?
Yeah, it is. Again, going back to the mind-body connection, even in working out, like that connection, experiencing it, is not exclusive to just people who practice yoga.
Right.
If someone is working out or engaging in an activity that brings them joy, then they automatically experience that mind-body connection, right?
Yeah.
They're exercising, they're doing what they love, and then they feel good, right?
Right.
And so it's the same thing with yoga, except that we're adding in the spiritual part.
Yes. So tell us about that.
Okay, so when we hear spirit in yoga, we often, like, things often get blurry. People get confused. They're not quite sure what to believe.
Yeah.
And so, spirit comes from the Latin word spirare, which means to breathe, and yoga is breathing. Like,
Yes,
that's the practice, breathing through the postures, breathing through the asana, and that's what
Yeah.
really helps to bring the entire thing together. They say that the breath is the bridge between the mind and the body,
I love
right?
that.
So
Yeah.
by breathing and focusing on your breath, you're engaging the mind, and then you're bringing the mind down to the level of the body,
Yes.
right? And so everything,
Makes sense.
yeah.
Wow. I love
Now,
that.
I know, Dr. Janine, you practice yoga yourself too, but I mean,
Yes.
is it really just though for primarily flexible people? You know, do I have to be able to touch my toes?
She's giving you that look,
real
Norm.
easily?
I don't know.
I actually do hear that comment a lot.
Yeah.
Do I have to be flexible
Right.
to practice yoga? I often think of the analogy, should people who have green thumbs only own plants, right? Not really.
Exactly.
Some people are more intuitive in taking care of their plants,
Yeah.
right? And so they know the right amount of water to give their plant, they know the right amount of light. And for yoga, it's the same thing. You have to learn, right? You have to learn to become flexible, both physically and mentally, the same
Yeah.
way someone who's not intuitive about plants has to learn, like, what to give their plant in order for it to thrive.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Right? I never thought of it that way. Have you, Norm?
No, I never thought of it that way at all. Because whenever I see people performing or practicing yoga, it always seems like there's a lot of flexibility involved. You really have to be able to, but I think it's great. I envy that. And I didn't know if that came from doing more yoga. I guess it does, right? The more you do it, the more flexible you become.
Exactly. So those people you see are probably people who have been practicing for a while,
Yeah.
or people who are just naturally flexible based on their constitution,
Right.
right?
Yeah. But do you find, though, I mean, I'm answering my own question, but certainly the flexibility, the longer that you practice yoga, certainly the more flexible you come, not just in body, but I've experienced in my own life, mentally flexible, right?
Absolutely.
Spiritually flexible.
Absolutely.
I mean, isn't that what we all want, what we should attain to? And yoga could be a great tool, perhaps. I'm putting words in your mouth, but it could be a great tool, right, to help to find the balance. When we talk in the show, Norm, as
Yep.
you know, in our show, we always talk about mind, body, spirit connection. And for people that have thought, oh, no, yoga's not for me, we'd like to dispel that myth, right? That maybe it's something that would be a great tool to use for people who don't know where to start to find that balance between mind, body, and spirit.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think most people come for that reason, for the flexibility. And I think
Yeah.
later on there's a shift from what this can do for me physically
Yeah.
to how I'm feeling mentally. My thoughts are more clear.
Yes.
I'm more calm. I'm able to experience stressful situations with ease.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Amazing, amazing. And would you think, or have you encountered the fact, this is something that I personally experienced in the past, that there's a misconception that yoga is some kind of spiritual, religious kind of thing?
Well, there is a spiritual aspect to yoga, but I think the misconception that it's a religious practice like arises because like yoga is rooted like in Indian culture,
Right.
right? And originally yoga was actually like developed as a codified philosophy by a sage called Patanjali, like 200 BCE.
Yeah.
And his approach to yoga was that he dealt with the mental, like people's mental states, right? So allowing people to shift from the obsession of their thoughts right, and move into their bodies, and sort of separating what's going on in the mind and having it like become real.
Right.
And so even his prodigy, we have B.K.S. Iyengar and Devi from the 1900s. They didn't refer to yoga as a religious practice. They thought that yoga was a great tool for taking one from illness to health.
Wow.
And so they focused a lot on the asana,
Right.
on the postures in yoga.
Wow.
Yeah.
So interesting. Wow. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, me
And I
too.
thought I
It's fun.
knew a little bit about yoga. Obviously, I do not, and that's why we bring the experts in, like
you.
Kamal. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's so fascinating to me because it's like any subject. The more you delve into it, there's really so much to learn and I think appreciate. Now I have a complete new appreciation for yoga, which I love. I've loved anyway. So
Yay.
that's fantastic. So I know that in preparation for today's show that you were able to put together a specific sequence of the postures for us to help with reducing stress. So we're going to take a look at that in just a second. But yeah, is it possible? So that's my question. Is it possible to use yoga with a specific sequence to be able to, in the moment, if you're having a stressful time, a stressful moment, to take a moment for yourself and actually use it as a tool to decrease your stress?
Absolutely. I think what each individual does would be specific to how the stress is being manifested in their body, so how it's showing up.
Yeah.
Some people may experience pains in their shoulders, another person may not. But just in terms of the sequence that we created, it sort of was created taking in all of those possibilities of where people could experience tension.
Okay.
And so the idea is always to release the accumulation of tension that the stress has caused in the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
So that's where
Is that where an emotional release would happen? Is that what that would be?
That could definitely be
Oh.
that as well. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about men too,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not speaking on behalf of all men, that is for sure. But I go to the gym more and I pump iron and do weights and all that sort of thing. And but I've also tried yoga, and I will say this: I have never sweat as much. And I was an athlete as a kid. Soccer, hockey were my games. Working out, I sweat, but not like in yoga. Truly. I mean dripping off me onto the mat below like I'm causing a puddle.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not trying
And
to
was
be
it
too
a hot
graphic.
yoga class or just regular?
No, regular.
Wow.
And I'm not trying to be too graphic, but I was so actually impressed by that. I had no idea that's what was happening in my body. But do you find generally a lot of men, stereotypically at least, would not attend your class or don't come to yoga as much because they don't understand it? They think, oh, that's a woman thing. What do you think?
I think previously that definitely was the sentiment from men, but I've been teaching for 6 years now, and more I'm seeing male presence in the classes. I think naturally there will always be disparity in terms of who's coming to the class, because I think there are more women in the population than there are men. But I think over time that gap is being just shortened.
You know?
Yeah.
I like it. I find it really, really interesting, that's for sure.
And I wonder, I mean, historically in India, would it be more men that practiced yoga
Actually,
years
yeah.
back? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, yoga was definitely practiced by men.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
more
interesting.
than women.
Yeah.
We
So
were
there you go,
invited.
Norm.
Thank
Now there's
you.
no excuse.
You're right.
Gotta get you into the yoga
Yeah.
studio.
I want to try that hot yoga too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, we're going to come back to that in just a second. Let's maybe take a look at the flow now that you, so graciously put together for our viewers to really help with decreasing stress. Okay. So I'm so glad that we have Kamal here today. She is going to be showing us a flow for stress, and I'm going to be asking a few questions during the flow to ask right from the expert Kamel. So hi Kamel, so great to have you here.
Janine. Hi, Dr. Janine. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, this is fantastic. So I know that you put this together for us, a flow for helping with reducing stress. So yeah, I'll just let you do your thing. I might interject and ask a few questions as you're doing the flow, but yeah, I can't wait to get to it.
Amazing. All right, so we'll start in child's pose. So bring the big toes to touch, open up your knees, and then stretching the arms forward, bring your chest, your forehead down to your mat. Then we'll just take a few moments here to check in with self. Perhaps observing where you feel any tension in your physical body. And allowing your awareness to shift to your breath. Notice the air coming in through your nose and out through your nostrils. And perhaps even breathing into those places or spaces in your body where you feel the existence of any tension. Take one more breath in and exhale out through your nose. Good, we're starting to move here, pressing to your palms. Inhale, shifting your body forward. Lower your pelvis down, legs are straight, and then pushing into your palms. Great space as you expand the front of your body, and just hold it right here. Taking a breath in through your nose. And exhale, retracting your shoulder blades back. You take one more breath in, and then bend your elbows, slowly lower your belly, your chest, your forehead down to your mat, and pause. And then push back into your palms. Inhale, peel your belly, your chest, your forehead off your mat. Come back into that seal pose. So it's just like upward facing dog, but the only difference is your thighs are connected. And then curl your toes from here. Exhale, lift your hips, your hip bones, your tailbone to downward facing dog. Now adjusting your stance here, you can bring your feet closer or wider, and it really depends on your body and what feels more comfortable for you. Ground down through your hands and your feet. Now inhale, lift your heels off your mat and take little steps to the top of your mat between your hands. Now inhale, lift halfway up, and just pause and feel the space in between the vertebrae of your spine. And then exhale, fold, bring your belly to your thighs. Grounding down through the bottoms of your feet. Inhale, soften the knees, lift the torso, the arms, wave up to the ceiling. Lift your chest. And then exhale, sweep your arms behind your back, interlock your fingers. You take a breath in, again, pull the shoulders back. And then exhale, knees are soft, fold forward. Move your knuckles and arms away from your body, relax the back of your neck. And inhale, palms come to your shins, lift halfway up. And then exhale, hands to your mat, step your left leg back, bend your right knee. Inhale, lifting your torso and arms up to warrior one. Keep pressing into the bottoms of your feet as you rise. Exhale, bend your elbows out to the sides. Again, we're focusing on lifting your chest up, forward, and back. Good, inhale, arms come back up. Exhale, release your hands down. Step your back foot forward. Inhale, lift halfway up. Just a little reset. And then exhale, fold, step back with your right leg. This time, bending your left knee, adjust your feet. Inhale, lift your torso, wave your arms up. And then exhale, bend your elbows out to the sides, lift your chest. Inhale, take your arms up strong. And then exhale, release your hands down. Step your right leg to meet your left at the top of your mats. Good, inhale, lift halfway up. Exhale, forward fold. Pressing through the bottoms of your feet, inhale, rise up tall. And then exhale, bring your hands to your heart center in prayer. Stepping your left foot all the way to the back of your mat, pivot your entire body to face the long side of your mat. And then inhale, open up your arms. Again, we're focusing on creating space and releasing tension that accumulates in the chest. And then exhale, twisting over toward your right foot. Hold it here. Inhale, deepen the twist by reaching your right arm up. Exhale, look down, release. Then inhale, come all the way back up, legs engaged, chest lifts. Exhale, twist towards your opposite foot and grab onto the outside here. And then inhale, twisting a little bit deeper as you gaze to your fingertips. Exhale, look down and release. Inhale, come all the way back up, arms open wide. And then exhale, hands to your heart. Pivot to the top of your mat, step your left foot to meet your right. Big breath in, take your arms up to the sky. And then exhale, full forward like a waterfall, release your hands down. Releasing tension in your neck here, maybe nod your head yes a few times. Good, now inhale, lift halfway up. And then exhale, fold, hands down, step back to downward facing dog. Take a breath here. Breathe out through your nose. Let's take one more breath, staying engaged. Exhale out through your nose. And inhale, just lift your heels, bend your knees, look forward and step your feet to meet your hands. Come all the way down to sit. And adjust your body so you're coming all the way on your back. Bring your ankles underneath your knees, arms beside your body, palms facing down. Now press into your feet. Inhale, lift your hips up to the sky. Simultaneously, take your arms overhead. Your knuckles touch the floor above you. And then exhale, lower your hips down, release your hands back beside you. Then we'll try that again. Just press into your feet. Inhale, lift up a little higher, arms drift overhead. And then exhale, lower your hips and your arms back to your mat. Okay, now open up your knees out to the sides. Bring your big toes to touch. And just resting here, bring one palm to your belly, one palm to your chest. Reconnecting with your breath. Take 2 more cycles of breath. And bring your hands to the outsides of your thighs. Inhale, close your thighs in towards each other. And then exhale, pull your knees in towards your ribs. Just bringing your palms to the tops of your knees. Gently push your thighs away with your palms on the inhale. And then exhale, squeezing your thighs back into your body. Again, just bringing the spine back to neutral here. Inhale, gently push your thighs, your knees away. And then exhale to hug it in. Do that one more time for good measure. Inhale. And then exhale, squeeze. And now release your feet down to your mat. Stretch your left leg to the left corner of your mat. And then your right leg to the right corner of your mat. Take your arms beside you. And take about a minute here in this rest position we call Shavasana. Just allowing the integration of all the shapes in your body. And noticing the effects in your physical body, in your mind. You may stay here for as long as you wish if you need an extra minute or two.
That was so fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I didn't want to interrupt you during the flow, but it was amazing. And I do have a few questions, but I feel so relaxed just watching the whole flow. I can't wait to try it myself,
Yeah.
which is great. So I noticed a lot of the postures were very opening for the chest. How would
Yes.
you relate that to helping with stress?
Well, a lot of times when we're stressed, we find that we tend to sort of curl in.
Uh-huh.
And so the idea of a practice for that purpose is to move the body in the opposite direction of the accumulation, so creating space in your
Yes.
chest. Also in the flow, you notice like we did forward folds with integrating the arms and shoulders. So that was to release tension in the neck, another place where we tend to hold
on,
onto
yeah.
tension, tension in the shoulders, in the back as well. So the entire flow was designed with those problem areas in mind.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. And then the Shavasana at the end. I mean, if somebody had a couple minutes, you know, in a busy, hectic day, if they could find a place to do Shavasana, I mean, would that be something that would be recommended?
Yeah, absolutely. Any opportunity you find to lie down and just slow down and connect with breath will be very beneficial for that individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Namaste.
Namaste.
Wow, that was so nice.
And I enjoyed watching
So
it.
nice,
So
yeah.
it was
Yes.
hard to, because
saw
I love
that.
to practice yoga. It's hard for me to sit in the corner.
What you didn't see
Yeah.
in the video as well was I was breathing really deeply, and I think you taught that.
Yes.
You mentioned about the
The
breath.
breath and connecting to the breath.
Exactly, and so there were moments when I was playing with the retention of my breath. So
Okay.
holding my breath on the inhale and then holding my breath on the exhale, that also helps to calm the nervous system when you hold on the exhale, and yeah, just to release tension and stress from the body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, because I know our viewers will really, you know, take that to heart. And I'm going to do that flow myself, knowing that, you know, and you don't need a lot of time. And certainly, would you recommend repeating those postures? Like you could do that sequence a few times back to back, right? If people want to, I'm just thinking for myself, I'm going to watch it once through and I'm going to rewind and I'm going to watch it again as a tool for myself. If I have 3 minutes to 4 minutes, whatever, you know, the sequence was, great. If I have a half an hour, I'll just repeat that sequence a few times. I think that's really going to help. I can't wait to try it. So
Yay.
thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I had a question coming back to hot yoga, because I love hot yoga, and some people I think have misconceptions, and I have a few studies which I'm going to show some of the advantages of hot yoga. But would you say there are advantages that you've noticed in your own students and for yourself over, you know, not that one is better than the other, but what would you say for someone who's new to or is scared to try hot yoga? What would be the benefit there?
There are several benefits to hot yoga. And hot yoga is really when you practice yoga in a space that's between 90 degrees. Sometimes it can go up to 110 degrees.
Fahrenheit, right?
Yeah.
Clarify.
Fahrenheit, yes,
Yeah, okay.
not Celsius. You know.
Yeah.
Getting
yeah.
warm thinking about that.
Cook. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so the temperature varies depending on where you go to practice. And the main reason why we practice hot yoga here is to mimic the climate or the temperature in India where yoga
Yes.
emerged from,
Oh.
Yeah. Makes sense.
right? And so the benefits are that, you know, in Canada it's a little bit colder, and in a hot yoga studio,
That's putting it nicely.
very
Yeah.
nicely, in a hot yoga studio, the heat helps to warm up the body a lot
Yes,
faster, so
right.
you can get deeper into your practice.
So it does actually help with the flexibility and the
Exactly.
mobility in the joints, I'm
Exactly,
guessing?
yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And you tend to sweat more in a hot yoga class, releasing toxins from the body.
yeah.
It also forces you to work harder because it's hot, and so you're getting a cardiovascular
Right.
like exercise as well.
Yeah.
So those are the benefits, but I would say that hot yoga is not recommended for everyone.
Right. Yeah.
And people should really be mindful of their own like constitution, like, and the things that they're dealing with from a health perspective
Right.
before they go to a hot yoga class.
Oh, absolutely. And,
Yeah.
and I can attest to this because if I get overheated, I will get, it's almost like a sunstroke kind of headache.
Yeah.
So I've had to bring like an ice pack, put it on my neck to calm and lower my core body temperature.
Exactly.
And that was to get me through, right? But I didn't want to stop practicing the hot yoga. But it's intense. I mean, for someone, I think another misconception is that yoga, you have to go at the pace of the instructor, at the pace of all the people around you, which is not true, right?
Absolutely not.
You go at your own pace, and I know, I'm sure you've said this in your classes as well, some instructors will say, even if you just lie down in Shavasana, which is the corpse pose, you're lying down for the entire class, you've done a yoga class. There's no judgment in there shouldn't be anyways, in a yoga class, and whatever your body needs in that moment, you honor that and you take care of that for yourself, and you don't have to feel. So for people that are, on the fence, oh, should I try yoga? I think it's important to share that you don't need to go to that extreme, that people around you may be, right?
Yeah.
And if it's an instructor-led class, which I've done as well before, that the instructor's at the front of the class and you follow along, or for people who do it by using, the internet or YouTube or whatever to do their yoga videos, you don't have to go at that same pace or to that extent that the instructor is doing. So it's a good tip. It's an easier segue into yoga for people that are new, right?
And just to
try
add to what you said just lying down and being there, you would get the benefits of the practice. But I think to add to that, being there and breathing
Yes.
breathing consciously,
Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
that in itself is a practice.
Right, and
Yeah.
you said that's the spirit, right?
Yeah.
That's the breath is the spiritual aspect. So yeah, so fascinating. I love it. We could do like 10 shows on yoga. There's so much.
That'd be great.
But just really quickly, some of the studies, so with hot yoga and helping with glucose tolerance. So I'm all about watching the carbohydrates and spiking carbs. I don't like, some of those high carb junk food kind of things. So the hot yoga has been proven in the literature to helping to balance, especially in overweight individuals, and the effect of the high temperature of yoga exercise in improving physical and mental well-being. So of course we're talking about stress today, the mental well-being of overweight, middle-aged, and young women. So studies are showing that the hot yoga specifically has those benefits. And as you said, for the cardiovascular benefits as well, we know that heat does that. We'll be talking in a bit about the heat shock proteins and sauna and things, are really beneficial for our overall health, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. And that is the topic of discussion for this episode, actually, of the Dr. Janine Show. It's about stress and the different components. And there's many branches to that tree, for sure. And we're just, scratching the surface, really, for some of them right now. And by the way, follow Kamel on Instagram, too, at Hot Yoga Kim, HOTYOGAKIM on Instagram. And I have to look up your account myself to see what that's all about. But what's on your Instagram account? What do you post typically?
Myself in yoga poses. I have inspiration in my story, different clips of yoga classes.
All right, I like that. Hot Yoga Kim is where you'll find Kamel on Instagram. Now, I wanted to ask you about meditation, and if meditation is a component to yoga also.
Yeah, meditation is actually one of the 8 limbs of yoga. So when we think of yoga, the idea of yoga is to bring the mind, the body, and spirit in harmony with its environment. And so there's different steps or stages to attain that harmony. And meditation is, I would say, the seventh step. And when we say meditation, what we're really referring to is concentration. So meditation is a state of being, But concentration is what gets us to that state. So when we talk about concentration, I'm referring to the mind, like engaging the mind on something specific. And in yoga classes, for example, we use breath meditations where we're just focusing on breathing. And so that engages the mind. You're moving away from that constant thinking and distraction, which can lead to stress,
Right.
and just bringing you back into the present moment.
So I know that there's different types of meditation. So you said the focused breath, probably for someone who wants to segue into meditation, that would be a great aspect. But we also have transcendental meditation, which is the most studied form of meditation. We have mantra meditation, where someone will repeat like Om, and they keep saying
that's mantra? Okay.
Yes, exactly. So for some people, but the breath, as you said, which is a focused meditation, sometimes people will do a guided meditation as well, which would be like a visualization. So I know there's a lot of, support online or podcasts and things that you can listen to bring you visually to different places, which can be, again, turning off that sort of monkey mind and those fleeting thoughts, which are not serving you and serving your health and certainly your stress, right? And bringing you back to something that's concentrated and focused. So yeah, I think, and the studies show, when we talk about the studies about meditation, that meditation helps with, in combination with exercise, helps to prevent upper respiratory tract infections. So we know from a medical standpoint, absolutely, mindfulness-based stress reduction helps with, decreasing that stress response in an effective way. And as part of a yoga training session as well, another study is showing that the randomized controlled trial of mindfulness meditation for generalized anxiety disorder has had some promising effects. And that's, stress, that's what we're talking about. So really using meditation as a tool to be able to combat the stress, I think is of utmost importance. And again, it's free, you don't have to, right? It's not overly involved. You've just got to take the time to do it, right? And I think that would be one of the tips.
Yeah, I love that you said it's free, because it's within you.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, you don't have to do anything additional.
Right, and you don't have to go anywhere. You can do it in the safety. I always give the disclaimer, make sure that you're not meditating in a moving car. Like, some people think they're crazy. You've got to ground yourself, and you've got to be in a safe place when you meditate. But people people can, I don't know if you've experienced this, that people can leave a yoga class. I've seen it before, and my patients used to tell me, I did yoga and I was like, they didn't come back and ground themselves, and they were like, kind of like an out-of-body experience and not grounded, and had difficulties finding their way home because they just weren't grounded enough to kind of do that. So
they were in that bliss state.
Yeah, and so that can be a good thing, but you want to be grounded. Also, that we've found, in the NIH, so has also, done a variety, and we'll share this in the links below this video, about all the areas of study that have linked meditation with being so effective. So pain, high blood pressure, irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, anxiety, depression, insomnia, and other conditions. And I think that's a big statement to be able to say. So if we're helping someone today by watching this to really, and you've got stress, right? And somebody who's really struggling to utilize these tips that we're sharing today to be able to decrease that stress response. So that was a great show. Thank you so much, Camilla. It was such an honor to have you here. I'm so grateful that you were able to come and we could ask these questions, and you really, enlightened me even more. I thought I knew a lot about yoga, but I obviously do not, and I have to learn more. But that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us today in this show all about how to reduce your stress stress and reducing those symptoms of stress that you may be experiencing that you didn't even know were a part of your daily life. We talked a lot about, the symptoms of stress, how your body can be manifesting the signs of stress, how you know that you are stressed out, what your body is telling you, and why it's so important to naturally start to decrease those stress levels. We also talked about some of those causes, so whether it's in your environment, in what's happening in your life. We also shared some tips with our special guest, Kamel, who showed us, a specific sequence, a yoga sequence to help with decreasing stress, opening up the heart and relieving that stress in the upper but also in the lower body. We learned about the breath and how that's the spiritual aspect of yoga and how that connects everything in terms of mind, body, and spirit to help to decrease that stress.
There is so much more to talk about, and we will continue with more of this next week, by the way. We're going to be talking about herbs that can help with stress. Gardening season after all, it's perfect for that, right? Dr. Janine will also share with the importance of our circadian rhythm. I can't even say it right. Circadian rhythm. We're going to find out what it actually is and how to say it and how it relates to stress. Seriously. We're going to be talking about saunas as well as cold exposure and how it can help and how it relates to stress. We'll talk about foods to avoid because we've always got recipes and foods and ingestion and things to eat and to talk about in every show, and supplements that you can take to help also. And Dr. Janine will also be sharing with us the Dr. J9 truth that we have in every show of the Dr. Janine Show for how to reduce stress. So make sure you like and subscribe and click that bell for future notifications of other shows coming up. Share the video too with family and friends who would love to see new ideas in how to address stress and learn about what stress is, for example. And leave your comments and questions for next week as we'll be addressing stress yet again, certainly. And remember to follow Dr. Janine on Instagram and Facebook and also on TikTok at Dr. Janine. That's DoctorJanine, the full words there. And we will see you next week.
Well, thank you so much, Norm. Thank you, Kamel. It was such an honor to have you here as our guest. And thank you, everyone, for watching. So again, just to wrap up, in the first part of our stress episode today, we talked about the causes of stress, some of the symptoms that your body is showing you, and the symptoms of stress that your body is manifesting. We also talked about different ways and some tips how to relieve stress and how to do it naturally. We had our special guest, Kamel, who is a yoga expert, and she really helped to open up even my mind about, and I love yoga and I thought I knew a lot about yoga, but Kamel helped to open up her mind towards how yoga can really be a really important adjunct into what maybe you're already doing to help to relieve your stress and to really dispel some of the myths around yoga and why it is something that we can all do on a daily basis to really help to relieve that tension that our body may be holding on to. So thanks for joining us today, and remember to always take care of your good health and do it naturally.